This is Brandon with Fleet Feet, and today I've got a very unique shoe for all of you, and that is not a road shoe, not a trail shoe, a gravel shoe from Salomon, the first of its kind, the Salomon DRX Defy Gravel. This shoe is basically a hybrid road to trail shoe, but Salomon is coining it as its first specific gravel shoe. It's sort of a do-it-all. It's one of those shoes that you can run on the roads in, on trails in, or especially on gravel in. This shoe isn't meant to replace your trail running shoes, but it is a nice supplement to the line. This shoe mainly fits into the daily trainer category. It's going to be best for those everyday runs. It's not going to be a race day shoe. It's not a max cushion shoe. It's just a neutral daily trainer. And you won't just be hearing from me about this shoe. We had other reviewers on our team test this one and share their thoughts. So let's dive into it. So let's just start with the upper. The upper is made up of a mesh upper and it fits true to size. And one thing to note is that the tongue actually isn't gusseted in this shoe. And that's not something that's actually typical of a trail shoe, but this isn't a trail shoe, this is a gravel shoe. And it's going to have some elements of trail and road qualities packed in this shoe. But what's so important about a gusseted tongue is that it enhances lockdown fit, and for a trail shoe or when you're taking it on more uneven terrain, that's going to be very important. Other than that, the tongue and heel collar are very plush. The lacing system is made up of what is called a SensaFit upper, and it's actually this reinforced area all around the lacing system. It's really nice, it fits really well on foot, and I had no issues with it. One of the areas about this shoe that I really enjoyed is these TPU sidewalls. So they're basically just these red sidewalls here on either side of the shoe that are just going to add a little bit of extra protection and reinforcement, so that way you can go on your runs and not worry about any external forces ruining the shoe. Sometimes shoes can rip or tear in these areas, especially along the seams, but with this reinforced TPU here, it's going to be much more durable. One of our reviewers, Kate, actually had a lot to say about this upper. For her, she was actually pretty roomy on how it felt overall, despite its slim look. The first time that she put on this shoe, she actually had to cinch down the laces a little bit more than she was anticipating. She found that the midfoot and the heel locked down really well, but the toe box was just surprisingly longer than she was expecting. And for one of our other reviewers, Nate, who has a wide foot, this shoe accommodated his foot really well. But between myself, Kate, and Nate, we all have different foot shapes and we all felt a little bit differently about the sizing and the fit. And if you want to figure out whether this shoe is going to fit best for you, you can go walk into your local Fleet Feet store, go get your foot scanned, go through the fit ID process and outfitting experience, and go find out whether this shoe is going to fit best for you. Now let's move on to the midsole. And the insole is actually made up of ortholite. It's an ortholite insole here, and you can tell it's actually quite plush. It is thick, so it has a little bit of extra protection and a little bit of softness to the shoe. And you can tell that it's actually really thick and it's a really nice reinforced foam. This midsole is made up of what Salomon is calling energyFOAM. For a hybrid road to trail shoe or a gravel shoe, this shoe felt very high off the ground and very protective. Also, this foam felt decently soft and well cushioned. And one of my favorite things about this midsole is actually the activeCHASSIS system, which you can see right here is actually this red part of the shoe on the outside of the midsole. And even though it's only on the outside of the shoe, you can tell that the sidewalls on the medial side actually rise up really nicely. And the activeCHASSIS system is really there to provide a little bit more guidance and support, and it's just going to create that extra stability. When I was running in this shoe, I can actually feel the sidewalls in the activeCHASSIS just wrapping up and creating this very higher sidewall approach, and it's actually cradling my foot in really nicely for a more stable ride. And for Nate, he really noticed the big slab of foam underneath his foot. He found that this shoe was pretty light, had a nice responsiveness to it, and was pretty cushioned in the heel. The drop of this shoe comes in at 8 millimeters with 34 in the heel and 26 in the toe. And with an 8 millimeter drop, it is a more aggressive drop than other shoes on the market. Let's move on to the outsole, and it's one of the areas that a lot of our reviewers enjoyed. The outsole is made up of 2.5 millimeter lugs, and they're not that aggressive, but they are quite tacky. And the outsole rubber that they're using is contaGRIP rubber, which is one of the better rubbers on the market. This actually felt more tacky and grippy than I was expecting, especially for how minimal these lugs were. And for Nate, who's one of our trail reviewers, he really enjoyed these lugs. He found that since they're not too big, they actually accommodate really well on the roads. But he lives in Bend, Oregon, where there's lots of trails and gravel paths and there's gravel roads. So when he was able to step onto a lot of those, he felt like the shoe was much tackier and grippier. Now let's move on to the ride and performance. This shoe was built for everyday running. While it does perform well on the roads and on trails, it is a specialized shoe mainly for gravel. And the grip was much tackier and more pronounced than I was expecting or anyone else on our review team. From my experience, I had no issues with hot spots or blisters in this shoe, but the upper was quite warm. Kate took this shoe out on a path that had roads, which led to gravel roads and then dirt trails back. So it was that perfect shoe that she could test out on every single element. And for her, this shoe just felt right at home. When she was running on the roads or on pavement, she found that this shoe was a little bit firmer, but when she was out on the gravel and the trails, the tackiness of the rubber and the overall natural feeling of a trail shoe really came to life. And while she found that the shoe provided a very smooth ride, it definitely had a more firm-ish feel. So if you're someone who likes a more firm feel, then this shoe is gonna work really well for you. And not to mention, this shoe is pretty light for its weight. Salomon has been making really light shoes lately, and this is one of them. The weight of this shoe comes in at 240 grams or 8.4 ounces for the men's model. And for the women's model at 201 grams or 7.1 ounces. And the price of this shoe comes in at $140, which is similar to a lot of other daily trainers out there. And if this is a shoe that you want to check out for yourself, you can go online at fleetfeet.com or into your local Fleet Feet store to go check it out. But if you want to read about other Salomon shoes or this one in general, you can check that out on our blog where all of our reviewers are putting their thoughts. Make sure to follow us on all of our social channels or check out our next video.